Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full time and have a huge collection of videos for you to binge watch to your heart's content. I upload 2 new videos per week with a live stream each week as well. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel by clicking the join button down below or backing me on Subscribestar or Patreon, where you get access to all the scripts I write for these vids if you prefer to read what I'm saying. I have a Discord server with an active community, and of course subscribe to the channel if you think I've earned your subscription. Time for another artifact. This one comes to us via the recent product for the DM's Guild titled Artifacts of the Guild. An excellent community collaboration that I can happily recommend you pick up. It's not just artifacts, there are a handful in there. They are of course extremely rare, as they should be, but there is a ton of other magical items of all kinds in there, with some that I think are going to be showing up in quite a few of my future campaigns. For example, a magic wand known as the Noisy Cricket, clearly inspired by the movie Men in Black. This dark, toothpick-sized wand unleashes one hell of an arcane cone of force and has a kick that is liable to send the wand's user flying backwards when it's fired. It has limited charges, and if there were ever a more perfect weapon for a badass pixie player character, I have yet to see it. But that is not the item I am taking a look at today. No, that one that really caught my attention is the Divine Shard. First off, it is deliciously tempting for a player character or NPC to want to use this powerful artifact, and it's powerful in a very practical and balanced way, with several abilities granted that closely match exactly what you would expect an item like this to do. However, there's also a very heavy price attached for a character who will not or cannot stop using it before it is too late. Second, I'm not even sure this is actually technically an artifact at all. It could really be a whole new and unique type of magical phenomenon that has been put into the category of artifact simply because it is the closest match. But artifacts are typically unique, one-of-a-kind and legendary items. There may be hundreds of divine shards in the multiverse, and it may be possible to manufacture and exploit them to absolutely disastrous ends. How and why all shall be revealed, so settle back, grab a beverage. We're about to get deeply, cosmically nerdy. Created by Quintessential Gaming, along with 10 other items in the book, the shard is an absolute pure and clear gemstone about the size of a human eye. It is a fact that no gem cutter or miner, or even the most skilled gnomish gem trader, will be able to identify what sort of stone this is. It will confound every possible test, particularly those that require the stone to react with some other substance, since the stone is indestructible. It doesn't react with any acid, base, or alchemical agent. It won't react to heat or cold, even the most extreme degrees. Nor can any tool cut it or mark it, and yet the stone appears perfectly polished, with a luminous quality that captures the eye more and more the longer one gazes into it. And an expert gem trader, once they've looked deep into the gem with magnifying lenses, will forever compare the other gems in their collection to the purity they have witnessed within the Divine Shard. Many are moved to tears and must be forced to give up their examinations. Magic users will typically know fairly quickly that this is not just some enchanted gem or glamour over some other lesser bauble. They may reach out with their mystical senses to see if the object is bending the weave at all and what school of magic the vibrations may be, only to rock back on their feet and break out in a cold sweat, just like they just nudged the tripwire trigger attached to a nuclear warhead. Divine spellcasters, no matter what faith they happen to belong to, will feel the power of the gemstone as an ever-increasing butterfly sensation in the pit of their stomach, increasing to a sense of awe that will see their hands shaking and a cold sweat break out over their body if they actually touch the stone. But for all their skills and intuition, it is a very rare individual indeed who will have any idea what a divine shard is just by looking at it. The divine shard is nothing less than the distilled essence of a divine being who, for whatever reason, actually died. Somewhere in the planes of the multiverse, it appeared in a location favoured by the fallen deity, or it may have just randomly popped into existence. The multiverse is not so nearly ordered as many people would believe, and such an incredible power can arc off like a rogue discharge, travelling through planar rifts, angel corridors, portal networks, far realm incursions, or even potent psychic emanations. There's no rules for when, where, and how it happens. I can think of some excellent moments where such a thing could occur, such as a mind flayer elder brain in conflict with an extremely powerful aboleth, suddenly exploding for no reason. The aboleth immediately releasing a mental scream, that will haunt any witness for the rest of their days, and then fleeing from what appears to be a diamond slightly smaller than a golf ball that just appeared where the exploded mind flayer was. Go ahead and let the characters roll Arcana and history checks. There's always a first time for everything. Perhaps it could fall into a destabilized bit of reality that got messed up by too many summonings and wish spells being cast willy-nilly. Or maybe something a little more obvious, it could be found left behind in a location where a super powerful demon once fought and killed a solar angel. An angel's skeleton remains curled around the gem, which hovers where the angel's heart would be. In any case, this is a mysterious, powerful and freaky object, even if one doesn't know what it can do or where it came from. But when a character sits down and actually identifies the item, it's going to result in a lengthy conversation out and in character around the gaming table. I can guarantee it. There are many instances where the stone is just a stone for quite a long time, many centuries. It could be placed as a decorative item, a gem in another item, or be part of the jewels of a head of state, or in the hoard of a powerful dragon, or in a collection of a lich who ends up tossing it into a corner of their lair, their investigations proving fruitless. I mean, to a lich it may seem to be some sort of super powerful soul stone, but they just can't access it. Until the player characters get their hands on it, of course, that's when the wheels of fate start to kick in. One of the things with artifacts is that they're not only bending the structure of the weave, rewriting reality around themselves a bit, they also attract the threads of the tapestry of fate. It's another way of saying the story really starts when the player characters show up. So it's entirely possible the player characters have been informed by some clairvoyant, soothsayer, hag, warlock or witch that the shard is about to awaken and it is their destiny to find it or the world will end, blah blah blah. The important part is the fortune teller tells them where it is. The question of fate and if the characters were supposed to find it, if it was thrown into doubt the moment they are told where it's supposed to be by the fortune teller. When you think about it, self-fulfilling prophecy can really do your head in, so it's best not to ponder it too much. As the DM, you can put the divine shard anywhere for the players to find after they've been told that they're going to find it. So that sort of thing is extremely easy to manage in the game. It's really not a mind-breaking situation. When the shard awakens, it is because someone has attuned to it at just the right time and just the right place for just the right reasons, and now the course of fate is in motion. Now bound with the gem, the individual is granted fabulous powers. These include an immediate boost of +3 to armor class as the gem hovers and orbits around the individual just like one of Congenio's marvelous pebbles, more commonly known as ion stones. Except the divine shard orbits around the entire body, not just the head, and the shard cannot be removed. It might bounce off something, but it's impossible to move it more than a few inches away from the individual attached and attuned to it. So it's kind of like an armor class bonus ion stone, so it's like an extra mystical shield above and beyond your normal armor class. Anyone attuning to it will know what is involved and what the risks are before they decide to fully commit to it. This is very important. Plus, the attunement is not a curse, it can be broken by the individual freely, by their own will, and cannot be compelled magically to keep the attunement if they don't want to. However, circumstances, dire obligations, and desperation may force them to, of course. That's your job as a dungeon master to put those sort of obligations on their character. As the shard matures, it gradually merges with the creature that possesses it, consuming it like a living material component as the divine essence reascends to godhood. This may result in the character retaining their original personality and memory, or it may not. They may be completely consumed by it, nothing more than soul fuel. Nobody knows for sure how much, if any, of the character is going to remain, so it becomes a gamble once attunement occurs and the process begins. Will the character keep going until the end, or will they be overcome by self-preservation and break the connection while they still can? I find the mechanic that they've created for this process particularly good. It's called the cycle of rebirth, and this is how it works. Upon attuning to the divine shard, the process of ascension begins. The character is now both the catalyst and the fuel for the magic item. Each day at dawn, the character must make a charisma saving throw. The DC for the save begins at 15. Every time a saving throw is failed by the character, the DC of the saving throws permanently increase by 1. The shard has grown in strength, you see. Once the shard hits DC 20, the character may no longer break the attunement with the artifact by any means short of their own death. So they've got basically 5 failed saves where they can keep using it scot-free and get away with it. But once it hits that DC 20, they're locked in. I should also mention that once the attunement is broken for whatever reason, that character can never attune to the Divine Shard again, even if they're reincarnated. So at DC 20, there is now no way short of death to halt the ascension process, and there are only 5 failed saving throws left before the shard fully matures and the character is consumed by the shard. When the character fails that last DC 25 charisma saving throw, they transform and they are gone. They can't be brought back to life by any means because they are not actually exactly dead. They are now operating at an entirely different tier of play, beyond the reach of any of the most legendary magics. Well, one spell in particular that caused the downfall of the Netherall Empire, but that's beyond the point. The consumption of the character's body and soul is not immediate. They can have until sundown until it kicks in, at which point it's entirely the DM's narrative about what mind-blowing transformation this is, including perhaps who the original god was or who the new god is about to be. It could be nice, it could be nasty, it could be quick, it could take a long time, it may transform the area permanently, it might wipe the former character from actual living memory. All bets are off, anything can happen. I leave this up to you, but it goes without saying that the birth of a new god or rebirth of an old one is going to have some fairly stunning regional effects, and the local area is going to take an express trip to Crazy Town. If the character considers this an acceptable risk, or the consequences of not using this power too terrible to refuse it, the powers granted by the maturing shard are pretty mighty. Along with the armor class bonus, when an attuned character is struck by a non-magical weapon or a piece of ammunition, they may use their reaction to instead take no damage and shatter it, rendering it useless. This power is called Denial of the Simple. It's fairly common for gods to do this to any non-magical force directed against them, but it's an astounding thing to witness a mortal being doing that. The character can step in the way of a castle siege weapon and simply deflect and explode it on contact without budging an inch. The limitation, of course, is that they can only do this to one attack with one reaction, so a hail of arrows is still a problem. However, they have another power called Protect the Vessel, where the character takes damage of a certain type and then uses their reaction to gain resistance to that type of damage and keep that half damage resistance until they use the power again on another type. So not even no concentration required, it can be maintained indefinitely. This power can be used or altered more likely once per short or long rest, so essentially the character just chooses to adopt a new damage resistance when they get a new type of damage. The next power is called Clear the Mind, and it simply renders the character immune to charm, fear, and possession effects. So they're immune to fear. Also, another aspect of this is called Cleanse the Body, where the character can spend one action to remove one harmful effect or condition affecting them. This might they have to complete a long rest before doing so again, but this is essentially a free restoration spell every day, and they are serious bad news for anyone trying to use mind magic against them. I think it would be really cool to describe their character just shrugging off the mind control attempt and shouts, "No!" with full reverb effects included, causing spellcasters to sort of clutch their sides for a moment as the god force just twangs the weave for a split second. Sorry about your ears on that one. There are many reasons why I love this artifact. First, it breaks the format a little bit. I crave new stuff, so I'm happy about that. Second, it's an excellent way to end a character's story arc. I mean, ascending to godhood is pretty much the cherry of D&D endgame outcomes. It only happened to one of my characters legitimately, and something that you just never forget. Third, I really love the transformation mechanic. It could potentially stretch out that length of time the character can use the item for quite a while, and they do have ample warning of when to stop using it, plus they can't go back and use it again. So the choice to keep using it and go down the road of transformation is really entirely up to the player and their character's choices. But I'll tell you right now that most characters will just go for it. I assure you. The abilities granted by the attunement are generous, and they're superpowers really, but they're not game-breaking, and they closely match what gods are known to be capable of according to the existing game lore over the many different editions, so I'm really happy about that. And the inclusion of random artifact powers probably would have tipped the balance into something weird and unpredictable, and it opens up the possibility for a potential curse which voids the character's free will to release himself from the Divine Shard's influence. Remember, the Shard is using the character to power itself up, so it may not be that that character's fate is to be the one who is transformed. Whoever is consumed ultimately was the one that was always fated to be the one that was consumed. That's the way this god stuff works. I also advise DMs to think just who this god is and if they have any sort of influence on the game world to a wider extent. This may be some sort of religious faction, either for or against the rebirth happening. How do they fit into the player character's plans and goals? Could they be a powerful new ally, or a really annoying bunch of jerks who are always getting in the way? Cultists are a bit like ninjas, shake any dark forest or moody ruin, and some of them are bound to fall out. Think of the Magai from The Mummy. They are a secretive society of desert banditos who justify being armed to the teeth and living like scoundrels because they're destined to stop the return of some ancient and horrific evil. Which is a fine catchphrase until it actually happens. How do they know when the Divine Shard awakens and seeks out a final transformative host? Who knows? Probably the same fortune teller who sent the player characters after it in the first place. Self-fulfilling prophecy, eh? See how that works? You got to watch those soothsayers, what with their animal entrails and fancy cards, runestones and throwing sticks. It's a shifty occupation at the best of times, but hey, not everyone making a buck off the domestic arts is a spellbook-toting wizard or a dragon-blooded sorcerer. Put enough bangles, amulets and mystic squiggles on a fancy but functional robe, and of course an enormous and ridiculously weird hat of some kind, and you're in business. Go grab the artifacts of the guild, it's well worth it. Support the creative community, link down below, and I'll be bringing you more from this book in the future. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do. Check out my Subscribe Star or Patreon for all the full scripts for these videos. Buy some Teespring merchandise, wear your geek with pride. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.